At least one thing.
For technical reasons, but we're here. It's now 6:55, and we've gone through some of the selectmen agendas, but the next thing that's on the agenda is the BD waste oil site update and the approval of prior executive just the BD waste oil site update.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. First, I want to thank you for having us here tonight to give you an update on the site. A lot has gone on over the past number of years, and I hadn't met any of you before, so this is a whole new board of selectmen for myself. We had a year and a half off almost, not being able to visit with you. I'll let the EPA and DES introduce themselves, and then we'll move into the slide and the presentation. Our goal is to go over things that have happened in the past, things that are going on, and things that are going to go into the future. We encourage questions during the presentation because I don't want you sitting there thinking about your question and missing the next things that are coming. So
very good.
And if you want to pull the hook out and it's time to go, just tell us to speed it up.
Okay.
We're happy to do that. Can we talk to the? I'm not sure. Can Cheryl and Steph introduce themselves? Can they hear us?
They were on the screen a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I can see them on that screen. Cheryl, can you hear us? Steph? Oh, they're frozen on that screen.
Hold on.
Here comes Dean.
Here comes Dean. The people that are trying to Skype in aren't able to get on the screen and talk.
They're frozen over there, so.
Oh, no, they're frozen. They are here. We're just gonna get some.
Okay.
We need more laptops over there.
Yeah, I think it was, the Zoom was closed out on this one.
Nope.
All right, remote participants, can you hear us?
Now we can.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to share screen, and this will bring it up for our remote, and yes, I think it might have inadvertently got closed.
Okay, so all I have to do is hit next now or whatever.
Yes, or
Okay.
space bar or arrow key.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm Mike Skinner. I'm the project coordinator for the BD Site Group. I've been basically part of Plaistow for almost 15 years now. I think I first came here to a Board of Selectmen meeting around 2006 or something. Cheryl and Steph, you want to introduce yourselves, and is Robin on? Cheryl, can you hear us?
Looks like they're frozen again.
No, they're,
No, maybe not.
I can hear you, Mike. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Cheryl, can you,
We can hear you.
you can hear me, Steph?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Steph Bonnet. I'm with New Hampshire DES, and Robin is here as well. Cheryl still can't hear anything she's saying. So Cheryl's with EPA. We're having fun technical problems today.
Cheryl, lift your hand if you can hear us.
Mike, I think we lost you.
Excuse me?
No one can hear anything now, Mike.
Nobody's talking. Okay, can you hear me now?
Problems we can hear one person.
She has no audio.
Hey, Mike, we still can't hear anything if you're talking.
I'm sorry? We aren't talking right now. I asked Cheryl to log out and log back in.
Try to talk directly into that microphone. It's pretty
Oh, okay.
limited.
Well,
Have them log out and log back in.
yeah, I sent her a text and told her to do that, but she hasn't done it yet, maybe.
So, Mike, I can hear things, but it almost sounds like a hearing test,
I'm sorry?
like we're super quiet.
We can hear everything you're saying, but Cheryl is in twice and muted on both.
Okay, I can hear you, but it's like when they do the audio test and you're like, eh?
Really? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I'm in now. I didn't have audio before.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, okay. Okay, that's the hardest part of the evening.
Thank you for your time.
We're done, we're going home, Cheryl. Okay,
Yeah.
now we have everyone's attention. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to update, and we'll just move along. The project team is I'm the project coordinator. The supervising contractor is Woodard and Kern, and their local office is over in Andover. The construction manager is Scott Freeman, who has gotten to know most of the people in the neighborhood. He is Cedar View Projects, and he lives in Beverly. The groundwater treatment system operator, which has been operating since 2013, is Weston Solutions. EPA is Cheryl Sprague. Cheryl, why don't you introduce yourself, since you were muted when we were trying to do that before.
All right, great. And I'll just give you a heads up. I can only see Stephanie, so I can't see anybody in Plaistow right now except for the presentation. My name is Cheryl Sprague. I'm the remedial project manager for the EPA, and I've been on the site since just about the end of 2013. And I work with New Hampshire DES Stephanie Monet, and on the phone, I believe, is Kelsey Dumbo from EPA. She's our community relations office. So if you hear another person, that's who it is.
Okay, and Steph introduced
Steph,
herself.
I guess your name.
Steph and Robin introduced themselves, so we can move on. I'll go through the agenda. We did the introductions, the site history, to clean up, as I mentioned, the progress. We're going to talk a little bit about community involvement, and then the future of the BD site. Most of you probably know where the site is located. This is the site map that's been taken out of actually the town plan. And the site is in the middle of an area that's designated, at least at this point in time, as a green part of the community. If you look at the side of the slide, you can see it's bounded by Kelly Road, Main Street, Old County Road. Historically, this site's been in operation since the 20s, recycling oil. So you can imagine what it was like managing those types of things back in the 20s. These pictures, one's from 1978, it's an aerial, and the other one is from 1996 that were taken. The first one was taken while it was in operation. The second was taken when it had been shut down and EPA came in and was going to start the cleanup. The arrow is pointing to some of the above-ground storage tanks, which are ASTs, and you can see what they look like. They were basically just tanks laying in a row. They were rented to people, and they would store oil in them, and they can come get their own oil. It wasn't all run by one operation, so it was quite a catch-as-catch-can type operation. The EPA did a initial removal action, which started everything. They got 1.1 million gallons of waste and oil sludge and water were removed. 800 drums were removed that had been stored on site, full of various oil and oil mixtures. And in 2001 to 2005, they did a vacuum recovery system that the EPA put into place. There was pipes above ground with a huge vacuum system, and they extracted 90,000 gallons of oil out of the ground during that period, in a 4-year period. 90,000, yeah. Cheryl, do you want to cover this part?
Sure.
Can you see? Okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Mike said, the removal action had some of those, the more visible waste, the waste in the drums, the waste in the oils sitting on the water table. But at the same time, there were investigations that were undertaken. They were called remedial investigations. And that looks at the soils, the surface waters, the groundwater.
She's coming back.
Well, I'll get through some of these things for Cheryl in case she is coming back. The removal, as she said, was all in the things that were obvious, things that were above ground, the tanks, basically housekeeping to get rid of a lot of waste. And the EPA came in and took care of that, all of that. There is a lot of residual napple under the former, what was a lagoon area. They basically were putting oil in a big hole in the ground, leaving it sit there. The solids that were in the oil, you've all drained oil from your cars probably, the solids that were in it sank to the bottom and then they would siphon the oil off the top. Well, that lagoon was not lined. So needless to say, a lot of oil went into the ground too over the 50x years that they were doing the treatments. This is a site conceptual model. It gives you a cross-section of what the site looks like. It's sort of a cartoon type, but it really does give you an idea of the site and the stratigraphy of the soils. We have the top normal area, then there's a lot of sand and gravel, which lets permeation of the oil through the ground and into the ground and going deeper. L-napple is light, liquid, non-aqueous phase liquids, light non-aqueous phase liquids, and it's oil floating on top of the water table that's under the site. And there's VOCs that are dissolved into that water too, volatile organic chemicals. Whoops, what happened?
So I'm here
Okay.
back again. I think my Zoom invite was till 7, so it cut me off while I was talking.
Okay, let me see if I don't know if
So
I
sorry
can.
about that. That's all right. It's going to come up. It's
There you
coming
go,
up in
ahead. Do you want to do that, Cheryl?
Yeah, well, I was on the previous slide, but I just add one more thing. I assume you went through what was on the slide, what they found in the RI.
Right.
So essentially so the RI was the piece where they look at the soils and groundwater and they look at which contaminants and at what concentrations. I'm assuming you said this, Mike, but again, they found that the groundwater contamination had been drawn down and pulled into residential wells nearby, which required the use of point of entry systems to address that contamination at their wells. And they found that large oil under the water. The other thing that it allows you to get the concentrations, and it allows us to assess risk. So we look at different exposure scenarios. You know, if somebody were to walk on the site or trespass at the site or wade in the waters, it allows us to assess which of those scenarios are an unacceptable risk so that we can then take measures to address them. So Mike, you can scroll. Yep, you went through that one, so I'll let that one go and go to the next one. Yeah, so in the end, when we take all of that information together, EPA selected through this process that we have, and that remedy is intended to address all of those risks we identified, whether it be unacceptable, contaminants in soils or groundwater, and they derive it with cleanup actions that are intended to clean up for the potential reuse. And at this site, the area that the site is in is a residential area, so the cleanup is intended to get to a residential reuse. So in this part of it, there's because we've already been operating for a while, what I thought we could do is we could discuss the cleanup components that we've already done or addressed. Then Mike can give some more details on that, and what one we're currently doing. So this should come up with them. So the first remedy was addressing the groundwater. So this groundwater was moving, it was migrating light. And the first thing that happened was they built a groundwater treatment system as a component of the remedy and began treating it and discharging it on site. So that's been, I think it was constructed back starting in 2012, and it was in operation, I think, in 2019. So the other component of groundwater is long-term monitoring. So in addition to treating groundwater, there's a lot of ongoing monitoring to assess if it's migrating, where it's impacting, and what the concentrations are over time. You can go to the next one. So this one's put in.
Cheryl, there's a question. Cheryl, there's a question.
Was Kelly Brook, was the stream bed
I have a hard time
of
seeing.
Kelly Brook
Okay.
ever cleaned?
Say that again.
I couldn't hear it, sorry.
Was the stream bed of Kelly Brook ever cleaned or ever looked at?
Kelly Brook went through the remedial investigation, that's correct.
Okay.
And there was a small area which is just behind what would be 17 Kelly Road. There's a curve in Kelly Brook. And we're in there again doing some investigation, and there's a very minor portion of the sediment that's going to be taken out.
Okay.
And I'll get into a little more detail on that, but that's a good question.
Right. I think in the risk assessment it identified exposures for like the child congestion and some of the soils upgrading of it. Not specifically surface water, but to the sediments that were in it. So the groundwater remedy was modified in 2012, and the BD group identified a potential alternative source that would give a permanent source of water. And the remedy was modified to connect those households to the water line. And the reason that's continuing is because, of course, we're continuing to monitor groundwater migrates. We also have emerging contaminants that we, like we have with 1,4-dioxane. And so as that's continued to be monitored and as houses are needed to be connected, there's great at making sure all those houses are connected. So you can go to the next one. Thank you. So there's two phases of the soil cleanup. So there's the deeper soil. So it was all this oil that had got onto the water table. And as the water table moves up and down, it results in a smearing of these oils and a spread of this contamination. So the cleanup was to address these materials, these residual materials, because they're a long-term source to groundwater. So EPA selected the use of a thermal treatment to deeper soils at the site to remove these contaminants so that they wouldn't leach into groundwater and they wouldn't continue to contaminate groundwater. So I think you just have to keep hitting the space button. So the reason why EPA selected heating by steam injection is because the use of steam increases the rates that these contaminants, they really want to absorb to the soil. So the steam increases the rate that they will desoil from the soil. And it also helps move all of that oil that is trapped in the pores, moving towards the wells, can be scrubbed and pulled out of the ground. And Mike will go into detail of that later, but that was the selection for the deeper soils. So again, because there was oils at the lagoon area and oils at the former underground storage tank, it was then broken up into two phases. The first phase was done in the deeper soils under the lagoon area, and that was completed successfully in 2016. And gave presentations on that. And then the second phase was to the larger area under the underground storage tanks, and that was the cycle completed that at the end of 2020. And we can come back if there's more details. Mike will give you some details. During COVID, we didn't come back and do a presentation, but if you need more information, we can continue with that. So those are the three parts of the remedy. I'm not sure what the next slide is. Yeah, those are the three parts of the remedy that have already been implemented or completed as we went through this process. So it's a good time to, where are we in this process? So the Superfund process is a long process, but it moves you through steps from identification of a site, removal actions, which address those hazardous materials like mobile oils or drums. It goes through the investigation, looking at alternatives, the remedy selection, which I talked about, and then it moves you into remedial design. So you spend time designing how you're going to clean it up, how you're going to clean up the site, and then the actual remedial action, which is when you take these actions. And when all of these different components of the remedy are all completed, what you end up with, typically at most sites, is the long-term operation of the groundwater treatment system, because groundwater takes longer to clean up than addressing source soils. You can go to the next one, Mike.
Okay.
So I think we'll pass it back to you, Mike.
The impacts that the BD site group is addressing right now is this is really a groundwater site. We need to restore the groundwater that's been contaminated. That's the biggest issue. But what contaminated that? We have deeper soil impacted by the oil from the former lagoon, which Cheryl has just talked about. There was some buried waste and debris in the area. I guess the term is an old farmer's dump. There was a hill, and they just pushed everything over top of it. People could dump stuff there. They would push anything that they didn't want on the site, they would put it there. And it slowly got covered and is also contaminated with oil. And there are sediment impacts, as you asked, Greg, to Kelly Brook, to the north of the landfill area, and I'll show you exactly where that is. And I can't see I don't know how to move the
Yeah, you can, if you have your mouse,
I'm not sure what the people, you guys are on top of the next slide, but I can't figure out what it is right now. I don't remember, but that's okay.
Little dash up on the top left corner of the window.
Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Yeah, of course, the shallow soil. And these all really came from poor waste handling. It's as simple as that. The cleanup progress to date is we're moving forward, and we did a access driveway and a traffic signal in 2012. That's where the 121 Main Street is, where the school buses come out onto Main Street, and we put a traffic signal in there so we could have a more direct access to the site with trucking won't be going through the neighborhoods. The old gate is on Kelly Road. That's not very advantageous to people. There's going to literally be hundreds of trucks carrying soil out. So that was done in 2012. At the same time, during that period, we were building the groundwater treatment plant. The group made a determination and agreement and consultation with EPA and DES to build the water treatment plant first. The normal process is to get rid of the things that are causing the contamination of water, then treat the water. But we decided to start treating the water. Hopefully that would help pull the plume of contaminants back towards the plant, or at least stabilize it. And while that water is being treated, and it's being treated successfully, we continue to take the rest of the problem out of the way.
Is it working?
Yes. Slowly. It's going to take a long time to clean that water up, but it is working.
What's a long time?
Could be 20 to 30 years. But there is no neighborhood impact anymore. There are no wells that are contaminated that people are drinking from because of the water line that was put in with Pennachuck back in 2012, I guess it was.
20 or 30 years. The majority is
you're basically pumping something out, cleaning it up, and putting it back into the same aquifer. And we didn't want to deplete the aquifer because there are still wells in the area. So it just takes a long time. Jay?
So in one of your slides, you talked about a plume. Is that plume being contained right now, or is there going to be leaching of that plume?
All indications are that plume is being contained. I'm not going to say it's shrinking in size because we don't have enough data to say that. But just as an example, you know where Howard Manor condo is. They had 20-some building, or 13 units in that condo, and they were all pulling from one well. So you know they're pulling a lot of water. The plume was headed right in that direction, we believe, because of the influence of the pumping. That pumping has ceased. They don't use that well anymore. We gave them well water. So that influence has changed a great deal. And in a couple minutes, I'll show you why we think we're doing something that's helping to pull it back. But again, it takes time to get all of the data.
The good news is that they'll have town water.
Correct, right. They have all have town water.
You're not worried about pulling against that plume then, if it's town water.
That's been diminished a great deal. There are still wells in the area, but single-family homes. They're just pulling a normal gallonage that they do in a day. We did hook up 4 more families this year because there was indications that their wells weren't contaminated, but they had very, very low levels. It was not unsafe.
Okay.
But we decided, we talked to Pennachuck, and they said we can put 4 more on. Very limited on their line, but we were able to put them on, and we did that last fall.
Good.
So I guess one more question, going back to the plume. What do you do for tracking and monitoring? Maybe you haven't gotten to that piece yet, but like, do you go check wells outside the area to see if you're seeing those?
Great question. That's common sense. That's correct. We annually check wells. There are different wells that are checked more often than others. Some only get checked every 3 years because there was no indication that there was really any issue there. But we do continue to check, and we do basically a circle around the site and provide those. That's done every fall, the annual sampling.
And is that done with the residents around the area, or?
Some of them are the old residential wells that we have cut off that are no longer being used, and some of them are other wells that have been strategically located to monitor that we've put in that were never drinking water wells.
Great, thank you.
Mike, can I also add that we send the residents any of the data that's produced as well in letters after you do the sampling, so they're aware of the sampling obviously that's going on, and they're being sent the data afterwards.
Excellent.
Yeah, the state also posts all of that on their line. The thermal treatment then was done the first one was done in 2015 to 2016, and I'll give you a little more detail about that. And we did a thermal treatment again, which ended last year. That was the second phase of the thermal. Thermal, as you can imagine, you're pumping steam into the ground. You can only pump such a large area because you can't produce enough steam to cover a large area. So we divided it into 2 portions, and they both were very successful. The next step will be the soil, excavation of the soils.
And what does that entail?
I'll get into that in a few seconds. Yeah. The groundwater extraction system, it's a big plant, and if you come to the open house, you'll be able to see the plant. We open up the doors so you can see everything that's going on there. We try to be transparent so neighbors understand what's happening in the neighborhood. We have extraction wells. There are 7 extraction wells. There are 3 that are more up gradient, and then there are 4 more that are down gradient on the Howard Manor condo side. Those are the ones that are hopefully helping to control some of this plume. They are shallow wells. They are not deep bedrock wells, but they do seem to be having an influence on that. And we have what we call rapid infiltration basins. They're ribs. The red circle is around those. They basically look like 2 sand volleyball pits. And what we do is pump the water after it's treated and it's cleaned, and there are no contaminants in it, or they reach normal levels. We pump the water out into those ribs, and it goes back down into the aquifer, natural. And those ribs are very, very effective. That used to be a sand borrow pit years ago, and we basically hit the lottery when we found that we had that there and we didn't have to build it. It was natural. One of the other things that we have is these are injection wells on the other side, and they are down towards Kelly Brook. We like to make sure, although the water from the ribs is definitely going into the aquifer and influencing Kelly Brook, we can use the injection wells to also help control flow in Kelly Brook, so we don't impact the flow of Kelly Brook.
So you're sure there's no short cycling?
No. One of the things that we do in the area, the top of the circle on the left, that's sort of near the corner of Kelly Brook, and that can be an area where Kelly Brook would flow into the groundwater aquifer there, or it would go out. We monitor that very closely. In low water, we shorten or stop the pumping or diminish the pumping in the wells that are up in that area so they don't pull water out of Kelly Brook.
Okay.
We don't want to be doing that. We always want it to be Kelly Brook to be receiving.
Now, are you finding in all of this anything coming from north to south in Kelly Brook that would influence all of this also?
I don't know all of the data on Kelly Brook. We basically are looking at the contaminants of concern for ours. I do believe that, and I don't know whether I should even say this, there is MTBE in some of those wells on Fran Ave, one of them, I think, at low levels, that is not from the site.
Okay.
So there is the state is doing a lot of work in that area. Steph, I don't know if you have any information on that yet or not.
I can't speak to that specific site, but if you ever check out New Hampshire DES's One Stop, there's a mapper that will show you all of the other sites that are being currently investigated or previously have been investigated in that area. So it's all tracked and mapped on there.
Okay, thank you.
That's a very valuable, we load all of our data after it's been reviewed and approved. We load all of our, or give it to DES and they load it all into there too. But there are other people doing other monitoring. The state is doing other monitoring.
So the bottom line, Mike, is you feel comfortable that the contamination from this site is not spreading to any other area within?
Yes, we do.
Good, thank you.
And we also, one of the other things that, the first question we got when we started pumping water was, and it's a valid question and it was a really good question, is you're taking all water out of the ground, when's my well going to dry? It's a great question. And that's why we're putting it all back into the same aquifer. We do not want to cause any influence, negative or positive, on those wells. The thermal treatment system, or the groundwater treatment system, this is the pictures of the plant itself. It's a highly complex plant with a lot of different chemistry. But to simplify, the groundwater comes in and we basically do some, for lack of a better term, some filtering to take out large particulates and so on, big things that are in there. And we want to take the metals out of the system, manganese, arsenic, those are all in this area. Some of them are contaminated from the site. Some of them are naturally occurring. I'm sure you're all familiar with the arsenic in the area. The other thing we have is an advanced oxidation treatment system, which knocks down the VOCs, the volatile organic chemicals, and 1,4-dioxane, which is a chemical of concern recently. And so we built a plant that could treat it to what are now lower levels required for 1,4-dioxane. So we are taking all the 1,4-dioxane out of the groundwater that we're treating. The third thing that we're treating through granulated activated carbon is PFAS. That's also a chemical of concern, and I'm sure you're all aware of that in the state. We have very, very low levels on this site, but we were able to put in these tanks which can treat the PFAS. Carbon is very effective to handle PFAS. And so,
Excuse me, how clean is the water leaving the plant?
how clean is it? It's basically drinking water.
It is drinking water?
Yes,
Okay.
it complies with all state standards.
Okay.
So we were able,
Right.
because our plant was really well designed, and we were able to put in the addition of the GAC with the granular activated carbon to remove the PFAS. So we were able to step up and do that right away as soon as it became an issue.
Now, will this plant stay in effect for decades to come?
It'll stay in effect until we have reached the remediation goals of the record of decision, which is the ROD that everybody talks about.
Right, usually there's a process as it goes along that, you can optimize the systems. If you're bringing in too much clean groundwater, you can move the wells. Typically, they're moved, a few times so that you can make sure that you're addressing the entire plume, and you get it down to a certain level. And, at some point you lose the efficacy of the treatment system, but for the most part, you're looking to make sure you use it to reduce concentrations to meet those goals.
As I mentioned, groundwater conservation was a big deal. We recognize the importance of groundwater, and this state has a lot of problems trying to have enough water for people. So we've treated over 400 million gallons of groundwater, and we discharged all of that back into the aquifer there. We successfully used treated groundwater for steam generation during the thermal process. When you have steam, you need water to generate. If we hadn't had a good treatment system to have clean water, we would have had to truck water in. And that would have been, 27 million gallons of water we would have had to truck in. And that would have all been wasted water. It would have been crazy. Then we avoided the transport then of 11.3 million gallons of water to the site. That's what was coming in. So it's all zero impact on groundwater is our goal. The thermal treatment system, when you hear about it, it sounds, okay, it's common sense. But it's very difficult to apply because of the substrate that we're dealing with. However, what it is you generate steam, you inject it into wells, and it's a source. There are wells that they were about 28 feet deep, I believe, if I recall correctly. And it's a very well organized, and it looks just like that. That's a module. And there were, I think, I can't remember the number, probably about 40 units of wells the steam gets injected into. And then we have what's called a multi-phase extraction. We're pulling out, there's a vacuum that pulls out the VOCs, pull out groundwater, and we pull out oil. And they all get treated. The liquid treatment plant is just like any other water treatment plant. We have an oil water separator. The oil is collected. The water goes through several other treatment, and then it goes down to the water treatment plant for final polishing. We could not afford to have oil going into the groundwater treatment plant. That would have destroyed the plant. So we had to have a very robust treatment before it went into the plant. This is just another diagram that shows you the water treatment coming to the thermal pad. We'll go through this quickly. Steam injection, the Welfield. You can see a little portion of that's the phase one Welfield. That circle of white is a concrete cap where some of the wells weren't as deep, and you don't want the steam coming out through the surface and not being held in. So basically you put a lid on top of the soil and it keeps the steam in. The Welfield extraction treatment plant, we built a big pad there. The treatment plant was right on site, right next to the treatment area. And then the pre-treated water is sent back for final treatment at the MOM plant. And then some of it goes into the rib and the rest of it goes back for steam generation again. So it's a closed loop. Both phases were highly successful. We reached the boiling point of water across the treatment area had to be 100 degrees C. We were after naphthalene, which boils at the highest. It was the hardest one to get out. So we had to maintain 100 degrees C underground. And all of the leachability soil goals were achieved in both phases. We removed over 500,000 pounds of VOC mass, which is a lot. It was destroyed on site, and recovered over 70,000 gallons of oil, which had to be taken off site and then was thermally destroyed as well. And here's one that the EPA was recognized this site as one of your wins for the year, correct, Cheryl?
Yeah, put you in, and yes, we did see that this was put into the report, and a lot of it is this innovative use, the use of the groundwater treatment plant to inject the steam. I'm just gonna get my to this is, when I got onto the site, a lot of people didn't think there'd be a lot of success using this technology for the oils. Most of these technologies are used to drive a lot of lighter fluids out, everything into the gases. This site removed a significant amount. Most of the that came out was in the oils. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And they did it, and this group continued as long as necessary to get to these soils cleanup standards. So there was a longer treatment process, higher cost to them, and they battled every week to make sure this stayed operational for a lot of winter issues. And so, yeah, they did a great job.
This is a highly data-driven process. You're monitoring 24/7. And EPA has an expert, Eva Davis, out of Oklahoma Laboratories, who is an expert in thermal. So she worked, we had thermal experts, we had waste experts, we had groundwater experts, all involved in a team. They were all from different companies, and they worked as a team together to get this done. And it was very successful. This is your slide, Cheryl.
Yep. All right, so Mike just gave you a recap of the 3 different phases that we either started, the groundwater treatment system, groundwater, and then the 2 phases for the deeper soil, so we can move the soil and help get most of the sources out of the site that would continue to impact groundwater. So that was a big, significant first step. But there was more work to do. So the remaining work and remaining cleanup requires a few more components. And this is where it comes back to addressing the Kelly Brook wetland area sediment and the soils above it, which includes like lower landfill soils, the debris soils from that that are underneath it. And then also the parcel 1 soils. So those are the soils mostly across the land have been impacted by lead and PCBs from the spillage of materials onto the surface. And we will have remaining groundwater cleanup at the very end. So you can go to the next one. So the current work they're doing, so the final phase of the remedy requires not treatment of the soil, the excavation and offsite disposal of these contaminated soils. And these soils would be the soils that pose a dermal contact, incidental digestion risk for the future users of residential, recreational use of site, between those lead and PCBs in the soils, and also for ecological protections. Identifying a risk to songbirds that could ingest the lead at the site. So the cleanup remedy of soils, and then complete the lower landfill, the wetland areas, and the miscellaneous soil piles made up at the site from the original owner's use. So as we move forward into this phase, what we realize is that after doing the phase 1 and phase 2 oil, there's something down by the lower landfill that couldn't be used by the thermal because it was close to rock, because there's all this debris mixed in with it, and it wouldn't be a good fit. So one of the things is that we split this up into an area where they would excavate those materials that still have some of that, which includes these lower landfills, the wetland soils, and then adjacent to it, the sediment in that area. So that's going to be the first phase. It's going to work on then starting that aspect of it. And the remedial design for that is supposed to be completed this fall, which is great. And cleanup would start after that. And then the second phase is the remaining soil. So that's the large part, parcel 1. It's the soils which could be contaminated down to 10 feet. 10 feet is the depth we use, that if somebody were to build a foundation, to dig dirt and move them up. So it's considered a residential depth. And then the rest of the soil piles, debris, there's some concrete piles. So that would be the final site, surface cleanup for that. And that design would start when the wetland design is completed. You can go to the next one.
Okay. And Cheryl just gave you a preview of what we're working on now. We have the ongoing operation of the groundwater plant. The monitoring, Jay, which you talked about, that's routine. We do that all the time. The biggest reports are done in the fall. It's very important for us to keep track of that because we don't want any red flags to come up so we can react right away. When the PFAS came up, the BD site group decided to react right away, put a treatment plan in, and it was taken care of. We have a wildlife habitat area. I don't know if any of you have been watching some of the things on Facebook and so on. That seems to be the most popular thing that people like to see because it is interesting and it's fun. We're going to move into the design of the landfill smear zone, which Cheryl talked about. The groundwater, the oil floats on top of it. The level of the groundwater goes up and down. So you have oil attaching to soil, and it's just basically smearing it up and down. And that's what we're going to be attacking next.
Are you anticipating any difficulties this year? I know the last few years, the water table has been kind of low. We've been dealing with drought and stuff.
We are prepared to deal with wherever the groundwater table is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what takes the longest part of the design, making sure that you get down low enough that you've reached the bottom of it, and then easily you have the top of it. But yeah, that's part of the design, is consideration of that. And then we have continued, as Cheryl mentioned earlier, continued community outreach. We like people to know what we're doing. We try to be as transparent as we possibly can. The lower landfill area is down at the corner of Kelly Brook, which we talked about, which is behind 17 Kelly Road, right there off Fern Avenue. This is the shape of what the area is going to be excavated. The sediment excavation area, the top part, that gray is an interceptor trench that EPA put in the late 90s, which was built to stop any oil from flowing into the wetlands. And it was a great stopgap. That will be removed, but during excavation, so we can get all the excavation done. And then the smear zone area is sort of up gradient of that area. It's sort of an uplands area. There's going to be debris and soil, which is taken out where it says lower landfill area. That's about 3,700 cubic yards. The smear zone soil, another 1,800. And then sediments around 300. Actually, we're just putting the data together. We did what we call a pre-design investigation. And we go in and confirm that the work that was done years ago is still accurate, and it still makes sense to design the way we had thought about doing it. And we just completed that, and we're putting those documents together. The estimated truck trips to do this work is about 580 round trips of trucks. Half of that would be taking soil out. The other half would be bringing fill in. It's a lot of trucks. We try and control that so there's low impact on the neighborhood. We were successful when we put the driveway in, we thought, but that wasn't nearly as many trucks as we're going to have to deal with for this.
12 months of the year,
Excuse me?
12 months of the year, winter, summer.
Hopefully this excavation will only take one construction season. I'm not sure yet. We haven't done the full design. We haven't gone out to look at contractors, but I'm thinking probably 6 to 8 months outside, but don't hold me to that. Excuse me?
Starting next spring.
Yes, we'll start in the spring, and let's see. We'll be starting in the springtime. We put in some what they call sheet pile walls. The lower landfill area, you can see the second bullet there, talks about site preparation. We'll have to do a little bit of clearing down there. Sheet pile installation, we have one sheet pile already been put in for the phase 2 thermal, which basically separated the two areas. The area that we're excavating has a lot of oil in it, and it just was not available for doing thermal. The terrain there and the amount of oil there, we didn't think it would be successful. So we're going in and excavate that. And what we're going to do is basically make a big bathtub. We'll make another sheet pile wall that goes near where that interceptor trench was, on the outside towards Kelly Brook. So we'll have a big bathtub that we'll be excavating out of. And then we'll have the off-site disposal, obviously, and then restoration of the area in the fall.
Just a quick question on the excavation. So when you pull it out of the ground at the site and then the truck leaves, is there anything that's done to the outside of the truck, or is it like fully contained within the bed of the truck so that there's no...
That's a great question. Yes, there's a lot done, frankly. First of all, we're going to be doing dewatering because it's going to be down into the groundwater. We're going to have to do dewatering, and we'll pre-treat that water and take it to the mom plant. So I won't say that the stuff that they're taking off is solid, but it's not a slushy wet. So that usually, well, it depends on what the situation is going to be, but trucks can be lined, and if needed be, they will be lined. The trucks are cleaned before they go off-site. They also drive over a bed of stone to make sure the tires are clean as well. The practices are they're checked before they leave the site, and they have to take a designated route, so they aren't going through communities. We have trained the truck drivers. They have to go specifically where we tell them to go, and they go directly to wherever the soil is going to be disposed. It's very, very controlled, and especially in a situation like this where we're in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know we're probably we're close to some of those trucks moving, so what is the routes planned for? Like, you're going to come out
You want me to add to this, Mike?
Say that again, Cheryl?
I was just going to say, that's a great question. So typically when they finish the design, it's the concept of this is how we think we're going to do it. And what we do is they move into remedial action, and that comes back with a lot of those transport plans, comes back with a lot of their, their management plans as far as how it's going to happen, what the schedule is, how many trucks per day. And when that all comes in, and before they start action, we do a public meeting. You'll see and see all the plans, see what it is before the action starts.
And it depends on what the waste is and where it's going to have to go. Trucks coming off that site, I can't imagine any of them would take, the immediate route is come out there at 121 Main Street where the light is. They would turn left and go to 125. So they're on major highways and not going through. We do take stuff up to Rochester. I think some of this waste will go there. So it would go straight up 125 to Rochester. There may be some waste that's going to be taken in containers that will go to a rail car that will have to be disposed of hazardous waste, and that will get shipped to another state somewhere, depending on what the waste is. And once we have all that waste characterized, then that will be determined. Cheryl?
Yep, great. So, these are the design plans, and as we said, there's going to be, following this one will be another design for the larger excavation, which obviously will have more trucks. So, one of the things, that we can, institute again is maybe some quarterly Board of Selectmen meetings so we can keep doing these updates. Because I think, this is going to happen fairly quickly as we go forward, and we like to make sure we can keep the information flowing. I think there's also continued discussions that have to happen on several different things. We don't want to highlight them here, not really, just to say this is what we think should be coming up. So what I mentioned is there's a required public meeting before each of the phase, before they start the action. So when they put together the plans and then they come out and they tell the public, this is how we're going to implement it. This is how it might impact you. This is how long it will impact you. And this is how we think we're going to get it done. So they will do that, so that we can expect that to happen. The other thing that's coming up is another 5-year review. So EPA reviews sites every 5 years for protectiveness. Is the current remedy as it is protective? Did any new information come up that make the remedy protective? And we produce those every 5 years. So we produced 5 years ago, we're coming up in 2022, and that includes town interviews. So the town will be interviewed for their concerns, their consideration as to the current, and that becomes a public document at the end of the year. So then the two other things that we think the right timing is now is residential recreational reuse and redevelopment, and they're two different things. So reuse is what you're zoned at. The site is zoned residential, recreational, so that's how the remedy considers it. The record of decision we wrote talked a lot about using it for recreational, but a lot of the things it didn't talk about was how do we address emerging contaminants like PFAS that we're talking about. Residual management, they did a great job addressing all those oils, but there's still some oil residuals left in the areas that have the oil. How do we address those in the future? How do we deal with the long-term groundwater cleanup in the future? So some of those things we need to keep having our discussions on. And when it comes to redevelopment, there's again different things that we still need to consider, and some of those have to impact the design. So a lot of times what we like to do is, as we're finishing the design, if we know what the redevelopment is going to be, incorporate some of those measures into the design. So we're only doing it once, and some of those things we consider are stormwater management, buffer zones, how the site's going to be graded, things of that nature. So as far as that goes, Mike's got a presentation that's going to follow this on some of the BD site group visions for it. Previously, the town had worked with EPA and developed a site reuse plan. And I think it's time to just move that forward as far as having the town consider what their path would be and walk on the path. And I think that'll take a little bit, just in case that's going to be a path we need to take. We want to make sure we're considering anything we need to in the design. So those are things we'll probably come back to and say, can we have these discussions on and walk you through that. So if you go to the next slide. So, for example, the new information, in 2018, they found the PFAS, the alkyl substances in the site, groundwater, primarily PFOA and PFOS. It's in the groundwater, most of the waste was released, so it's in the underground storage tank area. It's at lesser concentrations across the but it is under concentrations that exceed our screening levels, which means we need to continue to investigate it. And it's above our health advisory and the current. I'll confirm, as Mike said, that right away, the BD site group was on it. They started treating, they're effectively treating it down to standards using their on-site treatment system. Monitored for nearby residential water supply wells, but these are compounds that are going to continue to be assessed in groundwater, surface water, sediments, and soils at the site to see how the current remedy would address them, or if there's any new actions that need to be done to address them. So I just wanted to point that out of how emerging things can be considered in this design and construction process. I think it goes to the, so I think this goes back to you for your addition.
Okay. This is the part where some of you have seen it on Facebook. We're going to go through it. This is part of the site. We have two parcels there, parcel 1 and parcel 2. It was tough naming them. The parcel 2 is not contaminated. The groundwater treatment plant is on the edge of parcel 2, and the rest is a wooded area. And the group, long time ago, started talking about, well, maybe we should be doing something actively here to maintain what is there so we aren't impacting the environment that's going on. It is a wildlife habitat area, and it is supporting habitat very well. One of the things that we've done there is there are a number of projects. This area is certified by the Wildlife Habitat Council, and we have to do certain things to maintain that certification. We have projects there. We've restored a native meadow. We're monitoring and refurbishing habitat-enhancing brush piles. Seems like a simple thing, but it's something that the critters need. They need a place to live. So we maintain those. We have a bat house there that houses thousands of bats if we can get them to move in. The students over at the high school also made bat houses as part of the STEM program, and we put them up for them, and they studied the bats, what kind of bats were there, and so we interacted with the high school on that. And we are we have milkweeds there, we're doing pollinators, all the natural things that should be in an active area that is being actively monitored and maintained. We have, one of the things that we do as the group does is sustainable actions, which are basically recognized by the EPA as something you're doing to help the environment. Any work you do, reusing things, recycling things on the site, all those kind of things. We track all of that with the work that's being done. And obviously treating the water and so on is also something that's a sustainable action. The latest things that we've done, we put in wood duck boxes last year, and literally within a week, the one box had eggs in it, and they had ducklings this year and last year. We have the bird, you can see that in the middle picture where the ducklings are jumping out of the box. We put in game cameras. We knew there was a lot of critters there, and we were keeping it just by what we had citations and people noticing them. But we put in game cameras, and they've been highly successful. We had the black bear that was sighted on Kelly Road about 2 or 3 weeks ago also walked through the site, and we got him on our game camera. The bottom right-hand corner is a snapping turtle laying eggs. The rib area is also a very nice nesting area for turtles. So they go out there and lay their eggs. Last year, we discovered the nest too late. The raccoons and so on had discovered them before us and destroyed them. The diversity on the site is amazing. Different types of birds. We have bobcats, the deer. If you've seen them, and I urge you to look at the Facebook things. The following all this just shocked us, quite frankly. The skunks. I mean, anything that you normally see around here. The raccoons. And we constantly are getting pictures taken. We have video of a lot of that now. We recognize that the BD site is not just a pass-through for all these critters. There are a lot of critters that have homes there. The bobcat has a family. The raccoons obviously have families. We've had the duck families. And so it's also a habitat area that supports wildlife that is indigenous to that type of area. Why we're seeing so much wildlife, the light bulb went on when we started looking at the coastal corridor that the Nature Conservancy is doing. And this site is the intersection. You can see the arrows there. Those are two paths that the animals migrate through and to the site, and then they come out on the path that comes down at the bottom of the site there. So it's an area that is naturally habitated and used as a cross-section. A lot of the photos we get are different kinds of animals on the same path going through. And I guess they have a deal when they go through, they aren't going to prey on each other. The Nature Conservancy with the Connect the Coast, we've been talking to them and the importance of this, and we hope to have and actually there was a phone call today with your Conservation Commission and with the Nature Conservancy, and we'd like to do basically a public service presentation in the fall with the Nature Conservancy, the importance of the site to the Nature Conservancy and the Concom. Jill Center was talking with our people today.
So like long-term, 20 years, 30 years, do you see this site becoming like part of our town forest area or something to that effect? Is that a good use for this property?
Personally,
Yep.
I think it would be a great use for the property. That will probably be, as Cheryl said, that will be a decision that the town hopefully will start thinking about. It was 20 years ago that the reuse process went through. And there were different reasons for some of the things that came out of that process. Now we can have a vision of what is there, what's been done. And the viability of that area is amazing, in my mind.
Thank you.
I'm not a professional biologist, but just looking at the pictures and what's going through there, and now that we're talking to Nature Conservancy and some other people, we're getting a better understanding. That's probably something that I think Jill Center and the Concom would probably be thinking about now that we're interacting more with them. Several members, Buzzy, who is a member of the Concom, came to our last open house. We pulled this out of your town plan, and you can see where the site is situated. As you all know better than I, it's basically another pearl on the Kelly Brook that goes through the town forest. Some of the community things that we'd like to show that we're doing here is we've worked with the STEM program for about 3 years, and now we're being very active with them over at Timber Lane. And they're putting projects together. The students are putting projects together, and it's great for our engineers to interact with the kids. They go over and do presentations, and it's been a very good give and take. And the teachers have gone through the remediation part of it, and the physics and the math and all those kind of things, and then the biology. It's not just the wildlife, but it's also the engineering of the remediation that we're completing over there. The Girl Scouts come out, the Boy Scouts come out, they do bat counts. We have little apps for our phone. We can tell you what kind of batches flew over your head. It's amazing the things that we can do there, and the open house usually does all those things. UNH has come out with some of their engineering classes to tour it. So it becomes basically an open outdoor classroom. Our engineers helped on the Plaistow Pride Day too. They did the road around the site and got quite a bit of trash. One of the other things that is one of my pet things, when you go into a community and you become part of the community, you should use local workers. The workers that we have to hire to do the special work have to be specially trained. They cannot come on site. But we have a clean area on our site too. So we hire a lot of the smaller contractors in town, and they've been working with us literally for the past 15 years. Electrical, some building contractors. They've helped us put the water line in. So we try and interact with the community in that regard as well. Down at the bottom of this slide are the links for our web page, which is updated regularly, and also our Facebook page. And we're having, as Jay, as you noted, we're having our open house. This has been posted just about everywhere in town, I think, on any of the social media. And if any of you want to come, we'd love to see you there. We're going to have pizza, and I think they told me we need to buy ice cream this year, too, because it's going to be hot. So it's a nice event. And it's done around dusk, around 5 o'clock it starts, because we do a bat count with the scouts. And I think that's the end. Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Cheryl or Steph, do you have any final comments?
No, I think, you know, we try to put a lot together on this screen and in this presentation to try to bring you up to speed of where we've been and where we're heading. And but this isn't over, the conversations aren't over. So we're hoping we can continue to have these discussions and get the town engaged in some of these decisions that need to happen as we move forward.
Ladies, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Sorry for our electronic issues, but that's always the hardest part of any presentation.
We're sorry for our electronic issues.
We got to see how I can figure out how to eject this. Okay. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you
and
very much.
Don't hesitate to get in touch with any of us at any time if you have any questions. We look forward to seeing some of you at the open house.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Dean? Are you going to, we're going to be going into executive session.
Oh, okay, right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to do the minutes first, the approval of the previous non-public minutes?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. Do I have a,
Thank you.
here?
I'll make a motion that we approve the June 21st, 2021 Session 1 minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, questions, anything? If not? Take a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 500. We're looking for the motion for the session 2.
I'll make a motion that we approve the June 21st, 2021 Session 2, and that we remain sealed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bill seconds it. Any comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 500. And we're down to the July 12th.
Make a motion to approve the non-public minutes for July 12th, 2021, and to remain sealed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bill. Any comments or questions? If not,
Can
I'll
you
take-
give me just
Sure.
30 seconds
Oh,
more?
yeah, go right ahead.
Please? Thank you.
If there's no comments, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 500.
Pass your minutes, this way will help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to, before we went in non-public, I just wanted to mention, I had a historical society meeting. They just wanted me to extend the invite to the selectmen to say, you know, we're more than welcome to come and visit, just to reach out to Mr. Peck or Mr. Hobbs to set up an appointment, and that they are looking for more volunteers that are excited about the history of this town, to help preserve the history of this town. And they're also looking at a logo update, kind of refresh the historical society.
Oh, very
So,
good.
I think
Very
that's
good.
all I had from my committee reports, so.
And you gentlemen said you were going to go to the Eagle Scout thing, which will
Yes,
happen
planning
before we
on it.
meet again. Okay. With that, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, 2L, consideration of legal advice.
Do I have a second? Bill seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can take the
Pull
roll.
this one for
Yeah,
Yeah,
pull
go
it.
Mr. Britton,
Yes.
Mr. Blinn,
Yes.
Mr. Talion,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
Mr. Coy.
Yes.
Are we going to be returning to public?
That'll be it.
Will anybody need to stay on remotely for the non-public?
No,
Okay, I will shut everything down.
thank you.
So, yeah, we're still on the air. Once the screen is cut over to the yellow slate, then you'll be off, but
Perfect.
the mics are still hot right now.
Dean, thank you for coming down.
Yeah, others for the scheduling and logistics now. Well, has that group anything back for further updates?
What's that?
The group that came today, they anything back for further presentations?
No, no.
Well, they may, but it won't be right away.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, not tonight, though.
Right.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, Dean.